All right. So here we go. Great. Again, so before we pop in, if anyone has any questions along the way, just raise your hand or just unmute yourself if I don't see you, because there's a lot of you in here. So yeah, just hop in if you have any questions. So again, the basis of this whole class is on reharmonization. I'm really passionate about reharmonization, and it is my entire approach to soloing, to composition, and basically just to guitar. All reharmonization means is taking given information or given harmony. So it's like me saying, here, the chords to my song are C major to F major. That's the given harmony. And then you're going to take that information, reharmonize it, basically meaning repaint it. I said, here's black and white. You're going to put blue and yellow over that, right? We're just taking the given information and changing it basically to fit our own taste a little bit more. There's various kind of levels to reharmonization. You can go really far out or you can kind of stay closer within. But the nice thing about reharmonization is it gives us a lot more mileage out of the guitar. And specifically on guitar, I find most guitar players are really limited in their rhythm playing and in their chord voicings. You know, someone says, oh, play C major 7, and we're like, got that one there, got that one there, maybe one other one somewhere, right? Got another one there. And then that's kind of it, right? And then we see like a piano player play C major 7 and they have all these options. You know what I mean? They seem to have like limitless options on stuff. And it's like, how are we getting to all these different sounds? Really, really simple. And the nice thing about reharmonization too is everything that we learn from a harmonic standpoint, harmonic meaning chords, so a chordal standpoint for our rhythm playing, you can directly translate to soloing. And this is how I solo 99% of the time. I don't really use a whole lot of scales. Reason being is scales, modes all have avoid notes in them, right? And every single scale has a different avoid note. So funny thing with that is it's like, cool, I'm going to learn all these scales, but I can't play these two notes from this scale, this one note from this scale, and this one note from this scale. It kind of becomes like a big mess, right? And the thing with scales is they start to kind of sound like run-on, that it could sound like run-on sentences in a way. When we're working with the harmony or reharmonization, we're really just taking like the juiciest notes, right? It's like when you go out to dinner, I don't know if anyone else does this, but if I order like a really good dish, I like kind of construct my last bite so that it's going to be like the best. It has like a little bit of everything on it. And that's just like the best part of it, right? That's how you can approach your soloing if you use the harmony to inform you. So if I see C major 7 appear on a lead sheet and I'm using my arpeggios, right? Every single note that I play from that arpeggio is going to be the strongest note from the chord, right? Because I'm just using all the ingredients directly from the harmony. So that's just a little kind of intro to what reharmonization is. So first, I want to look at our tools. Our tool set, meaning what we can use to generate harmony and how we can use these tools to further our reharmonization. So we have triads and seventh chords. Those are going to be our two main topics here. We're going to be working the most with triads and seventh chords because that's pretty much what we're limited to on the guitar and in harmony in general. So first thing, if you see that sheet, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through what all these PDFs are showing us. And then from there, you can practice those on your own. So if we first check out this one that says triad inversions, just want to make sure everyone, just a thumbs up if everyone sees that one, has that. Okay, great. So when we look at this sheet, it might look a little confusing. Basically, let's just take a look at that first page that has just major triads. And you'll see that first row, if you just look left to right, that's going to be our major triads going up, ascending the same string set, meaning we're using the G, B, and E strings. You'll see it's all in the same string set, so you're moving up the neck there. If you go down to that second row, That's going to be the D, G, and B string. So it's the same triads, just one string set down. And then if you go down one more, it's going to be the same thing on the A, D, and G. And then one more time, it'll be the low E, A, and D strings. So if you're reading it like a book, left to right, that's each string set moving up and down on that individual set of strings. Or you'll also see these arrows on the side. One is going up and one is going to the side, right? So what does that mean? Well, you can read this in two ways. You can read this like I just explained it, left to right across the sheet, or I could start at that very top one, right? That first block here, first one on the page, and move straight down. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna move me across my inversions, across all the different string sets. Okay. Now you'll notice too, like, okay, this looks a little confusing because it kind of looks like every single chord is built like in the same area on the neck. All you have to do to figure these out is find the root. So you'll see that root note has a different circle on it. So if I wanted to play, for example, a C triad, let's just do that first row on the top together. If I play a C triad, I'm actually gonna have on the top three strings, I'm gonna have 5, 5, 3, right? Reason being, that first note is C. So there's my C there. The next one is going to be up here, 9, 8, 8. Again, because that root is on top, C. And that last one is going to be a little D shape at the 12th fret, 12, 13, 12. Again, C being right there. And then we're back to the root position, just an octave higher. Quick side note on these. Whenever you're learning something new, if any of these shapes are new to you, I want you to try to anchor them down to something that you're familiar with. So for example, if I said, cool, well, let me think of the C shapes that I already know, right? I know this like kind of power chord. Some of you might know it as the A shape C chord, right? And check this out. If I play my A shape C chord right here, those top three strings, that first triad shape connects me to this, right? If I play that shape and just play those top three strings, it's just my triad right there. Check it out, moving on. First inversion, 9, 8, 8, right? Look at this, boom. My normal C just bar chord right there on the sixth string bar chord, right? Check it out, top three strings are just that triad, right? And last, we have that D shape at the 12th fret. Check this out. If I take this down an octave, I just have open, first fret, open. Look at this. It's my cowboy C chord, right? And it's just those top three strings. So for this one, all I do is visualize my C chord up 12 frets. I might just put like a little bar down so I can really visualize that. And again, it's just those top three strings. So I consider these like my anchors. Here's my first anchor connecting me to there. Here's my second anchor connecting me to first inversion. And then my third anchor is going to connect me to that top string set there. Same exact trick works for the next row down where we start on second inversion. That's just gonna be right here at the 5th fret. Connects me here. First root position, right there, also connects me, just the middle three strings of that shape. And then last, we got right here, this is going to just connect me to, again, the middle of that C chord. So you can see how these can start being used for more, you can start using these more of like a visual reference, right? And that's how I want you to start seeing the guitar is when you look down, you see your different chord options. So good way to practice these too. When you're learning these, don't just learn the shapes. That's the biggest thing that guitar players do is we like learn a shape and we're like, cool, got it. But we don't know what's going on inside that shape. So I would encourage you to just take the time to really learn just the intervals inside your triads. And this will help you with so much stuff. If I would have done this 10 years ago, I would be such a good guitar player. And I suck because I didn't learn this earlier on. So I always say this is like the best thing to do for your guitar playing. Is just learn where your root, third, and your fifth is, right? We know triads are root, third, fifth. And if we remember that our inversions, so root position, the root is the lowest note. First inversion, the third is the lowest note. Second inversion, the fifth is the lowest note. So with that in mind, if I'm looking at this and I say, okay, here's my C root position, I know the root must be the lowest note, right? So now all I have to do is figure out my third and my fifth. And here, E, I know E is the third, so here's a root, third, fifth. Beautiful. Go to first inversion. I know the third is going to be the lowest note, so I already know there's my third. And I know C is here from that high E string, so that gets me my fifth is right here. And then same thing at the top. A little easier because we could cheat with those open strings, right? We have fifth, root, third. The reason this is so important is because, again, when you're learning all of these triads, whether it be your major or your minor or your augmented or your diminished, you can learn just your major triads and just your major 7 chords too. We're going to get to 7 chords in a second. If you just learn your majors and master them and know where all of your intervals are, you already know all of the other triads. And this is why. If I go, okay, here is my major, root, third, fifth, and someone says, cool, play a minor triad. All I have to do is go, okay, I know the difference between major and minor is I just take that third and lower it by a half step. So check us out. I go, okay, root, third, fifth. Here's my third. I want to make this minor, lower it 1 fret, right? Someone says play diminished. All I have to do now is lower the fifth, right? Or someone says, cool, play a C augmented triad. That means I have to raise the fifth. Here's my major triad. I know my fifth is on top. There's my C augmented chord. So just by mastering your major chords, you can play everything else from them. So that'll save you a lot of time in the long run as well. Any questions on this triad sheet? Does that kind of make sense on how to generally approach it and practice it? Thumbs up. If anyone has any questions, I know whenever I'm in like a master class like this, I'm like afraid to ask a question because I don't want to look like I'm dumb or something, but no one is dumb. And questions are good. And chances are if you do ask a question, everyone else was wanting to ask it too. So no one be afraid. Next sheet real quick, if you guys could just open up the one that says 7th chord inversions, please. That is going to be our next tackle here. And the nice thing about this sheet is it's laid out in a way that we only have to worry about the bottom 3 string sets. So since we're working with 4 notes, right, we can't do them like we had triads on 1, 2, 3, 4 different sets of strings. 7th chords we can only play on the low E string, the A string, and the D string roots. We do have one extra inversion. We will have a 3rd inversion, which has the 7th and the lowest note, but pretty self-explanatory. Again, if we just look at the first one here, starts on G major 7. And the nice thing about these chords is we're kind of getting like a double trouble here, because when we go through our inversions, that was all just that first row. We're playing not only the chord inversions, but the low E string is actually playing our major 7 arpeggio, which is like a really fun little thing. So this is going to be kind of the step 1 into breaking out into reharm. Now, we're not technically reharmonizing anything by playing an inversion, but it's going to drastically change the sound. And this is a great way to start, kind of wetting your feet into getting into the sound of reharmonization. So, for example, looking at all these inversions for 7th chords, right? I said before, like we're kind of used to playing like, okay, root position, got another one on the A string, and that's kind of where we stop. If we play all of our inversions, check us out. We have on the low E string, root position, first inversion. Again, this is the same exact chord, same exact notes. We're just reordering the notes. Totally different sound right there, really cool. Again, same exact 4 notes, just totally different sound. Right, kind of an ugly one. And then back to root. Same thing on the next string set. On the A string, we have, here's our root position, the first inversion, one of my favorites, another really pretty one. I 7 in the bass. It's very tense, but it's a really cool flavor, right? And then we have the D string root chords. It's a really nice one. Another beautiful, right? The major 7th in the bass, right? So what I'm getting at here is just by having my 7th chord inversions alone, I can start manipulating the harmony to sound a little bit different. So for example, if I think of a simple chord progression, let's say we're doing C major 7 to F major 7. Those are the 2 chords of the moment, right? Right? Instead of just sticking to my 2 basic chord voicings, right? Because a lot of songs, especially pop songs, are really only a few chords, and it can get really boring just playing the same voicings, right? So again, C to F, C major 7 to F major 7. Check out if I just use inversions, I could get this: F major 7, C major 7, right? Same exact chord tones. Right there. F major 7, C major 7. I could do F major 7, C major 7, or I could start moving that same shape around. Right? Totally different textures here. So you'll see, like, especially if you're working on a song or you're singing or you're working with a soloist, it's a totally different sensation, right? If I'm playing, right, versus right. So you're kind of starting to see how, like, wow, I can use these 7th chord inversions to kind of, I guess what I would call like fake reharmonizing, fake reharmonizing, because we're not changing the fundamental harmony, but we're just bringing out different shades of that same chord, just because when we rearrange the chord tones, we have a different interval layout of that chord, so it gives us a couple different sounds to work with. Same situation here as I was explaining with the triads. Learn all of your major 7 first and learn the interval layout of each one. It's nice on this sheet because it has the notation. So if you can read the staff, and if you can't, I have a music theory course on my website. I think I go over the staff in the first one. So even if you just want to knock that out, one quick lesson, it'll just help you see which notes are where. It's a way easier way to start memorizing, because hunting for big four different intervals within here can get a little tricky. So having that visual reference will help quite a bit. But same exact scenario here. If I say, okay, here's my major 7 second inversion, and someone says, cool, well, play a dominant 7 chord. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I didn't learn those by muscle memory, but if I know all the intervals here, I know I have my 5th, and whoop, there's my 7th. Dominant 7th just means I lower that 7th, a flat 7. Now I have my dominant 7 chord. So again, just the power of mastering your major 7ths. You can generate all the extra chords that you need just by knowing the interval layout of those chords. One other cool little discovery I just want to show you while you're memorizing these that I only figured out like a year and a half ago, and I don't know how I never saw it. Again, would have saved me a lot of time. Check this out. If I play, let's play that first G major 7 root position. Check this out. Just move the note on the low E string up to the high E string. So everything else stays the same, but I'm going to move this note here. Now here's my D string 3rd inversion G major chord. Now check this out. I'll go to G major 7 1st inversion. Now check this out. Same thing. I'm going to move that low E string note to the high E string. Maybe refinger it. There's my root position on the high E string. Same thing. I'll go to 2nd inversion. That's a real funky one, right? But check this out. All I do, again, move that low E string to the high E string. Same thing on 3rd inversion. I'm going to take that low note and move it to the high E string. So it's just cool because once you learn those low E string ones, you kind of already know your D string ones, like at least from a visual standpoint. That's just a fun little hack in a way that will save you some time as well. Now, the other sheet that we don't even really need to open that goes with your seventh chords is just your seventh chord arpeggios. If you're familiar with those, great. Just keep brushing up on those. If you're unfamiliar with them, I've given you two different arpeggios, one starting off the low E string and one starting off of the A string. And what I want you to do is I want you to practice those in conjunction with your normal seventh chord. So for example, I might play C major 7 off the low E string. Say, great, there's my root position C major 7. And now I'm going to attach my low E string C major 7 arpeggio to this voicing. So voicing, arpeggio. And then same thing for the A string. I'll play my A string, root C major 7, and then I'll play my C major 7 arpeggio. And the whole point here is to get it so when we play a chord, we see the arpeggio underneath it. So when I'm playing this, I'm also visualizing, and same thing here, I'm playing a chord and I'm seeing the arpeggio right under it. Quick pointer for learning your arpeggios, as soon as you get them under your muscle memory from the low E string, don't always start here. As guitar players, we always start arpeggios, scales, everything from the bottom and go up, right? So practice everything for like, I'll do a week on, a week off of practicing everything descending. So we'll actually start here at the top and descend down the arpeggio. That'll just help internalize it a lot and a lot quicker. And it'll make it more useful because when we start soloing with arpeggios, you don't want to always have to go, you don't always have to start on the low E string. That will kind of throw off your whole flow. And then quick thing, if you are unfamiliar with any of your seventh chord voicings, there's also a sheet in there that says seventh chord voicings, which has all of our basic seventh chords that we're going to need to know to really utilize all of these reharm techniques. That's major 7, dominant 7, minor 7 flat 5, and diminished 7. So those 5 chord types. So we have 5 seventh chord types, and then for triads, we have major, minor, augmented, and diminished. And all of those also have all of their inversions. So that's a lot of the heavy lifting that I was talking about in terms of how much time practice-wise this is going to take, like, to really master and internalize. Does that all make sense, kind of just from like a intellectual standpoint, and how to practice them? Sick, beautiful. All right, so with all of that, those are all of our tools. What I want to start looking at is actually how to start reharmonizing things. So again, all reharmonization is, it can be a very colorful tool. It can be something where you maybe see one chord on the sheet that says C major 7, but then you hear someone else going, it's like, how do we generate all these extra cool sounds? It's just through reharmonization. So let's start by looking at something very simple. Here, I'm going to try to share my screen. I should be able to mirror my iPad. I just learned how to do this. So let's see if I can get it. Here we go, share my screen. All right, everyone can see my screen now, correct? All right, do you guys now see my iPad? I can't see the chat anymore, so if someone could unmute themselves and let me know if you can see this, that would be great.
We can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So check us out. The basis of reharmonization comes from first looking at the harmony that we have and that we're working with. So let's take something really simple like a C major 7, okay? So the chord tones for C major 7, we have C, E, G, and B, okay? These are our chord tones for C major 7, and this would be my root. Here we go, we have root, this will be our 3rd, this will be our 5th, and this will be our 7th. Now, if we look at any seventh chord, seventh chords are really where I want to start with reharmonization because it's a lot easier since we have 4 notes as opposed to 3 with a triad. So looking at the C major 7 chord, right, we have 4 notes, but check this out. If I look at these 4 notes, I could actually group these into 2 separate groups of 2. I could say, well, I have C, E, and G, okay? And I also have E, G, and B. So check this out. CEG just makes a C triad, and EGB gives me an E minor triad. So this is already really cool because what I can do now is I can go ahead and I can play, I can see, cool, I have to play C major 7. Well, we already know now, wow, I can just play a C major triad or an E minor triad. So now if I know all of my triads, right, we just went through, we have all these different triads for C, right, all up and down the neck, everywhere, all over the fretboard. I also have the same thing for E minor. Now I can go through, and this is a really cool way to generate rhythm parts. I do this like with my band all the time. Instead of just playing C major 7, I'll just go between 2 triads. Way more of like a funky kind of guitar part generator in a way, right? So that's kind of step 1. I'm actually going to switch to a whiteboard just because it might be a little quicker. So again, we had C, E, G, and B. There's our C major 7 chord. You can all see this, right? It's not backwards on your screen. Okay. So again, we said, cool, we can break this up. Here's my C chord. There's my E minor chord. Now, those are just triads, right? What happens if I want to start expanding on the harmony? Well, since we know diatonic harmony is built in thirds, meaning, right, when I start, here's my root, a third up from that is E, third up from that is G, third up from that is B, right? We have C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And now if we went up another third from here, B, C, D, we would have a D. Now check this out. This is kind of how I always start a reharmonization on any specific chord. So what I'm doing here, again, this is my fundamental chord here, C, E, G, B. Those are my chord tones, right? There's my C major 7. Now by adding this one extra note, this is actually going to be the 9th of the chord. And just a fancy term for saying we're adding an extra third on top. So when we add a 9th on top of the chord, and again, to find the 9th of any chord, we simply just count up an extra third from the last note. Now that I've done this, we've added an extra note. I now have, okay, C, E, G, there's my C triad. I also have E, G, B like we had before, E minor, but I also have G, B, D. Holy crap, that's a G triad. So now I have 3 different triads, G, E minor, and C. And what I'm doing here is if I look at the sheet and it says C major 7, you can always add a 9th. It's fine as long as you're not like interfering with like the melody, whoever's singing. This is what I want to start getting to. When I first started learning this, I was like, but the sheet doesn't say C major 9. It says C major 7, so I have to play C major 7. Bullshit. Play whatever the fuck you want. It's going to sound great. And that's really like the essence of reharmonization. So again, looking from a triadic standpoint, so let's just write here, triads. We have obviously C, because we're playing a C major 7 chord, E minor, which we just discovered here, and G. Now, one more layer to this. I'm just going to get really in depth with all of this, and then I'm going to show you like a shortcut on how to generate all this, but this stuff is really important so that you understand where it's all coming from. So something to consider when we're reharmonizing is how far away we are from the original harmony. So if we want to look at harmonic considerations, which is basically just saying, okay, if I play a C triad over a C major 7 chord, what am I really getting here, right? And I say, okay, if I'm playing a C chord here, C triad over C major 7, I'm getting my root, third, and my 5th. Very stable, very, very cool. Okay, cool. What happens if I play E minor triad, E, G, B over a C major 7 chord? Me playing an E minor triad is going to give me the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th of C major 7. Cool, so I'm just getting that 7th in there, right? Now, what about G? I'm going to get my 5th, my 7th, and my 9th. Okay, cool. So I don't have the root or the 3rd in that G triad. So it's a little further away from home, right? It's going to sound a little bit more crunchy on the crunch scale, right? But it's still going to sound great because it's just all part of this one structure. Now, there's our triads, right? Since we have an extra note here, we could also do something completely crazy, which would be say, where are my 7th chords in here? Well, I have, okay, C, E, G, B. There's my C major 7, right? I also have E, G, B, D, which makes an E minor 7. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So check us out. This is like mind-blowing stuff. I'm telling you to play a major 7 chord, but what you're going to do is you're going to actually play a minor 7 chord. Sounds counterintuitive, right? Oh, he's asking me to play a major chord. Let me play a minor chord. Sounds wrong, probably, but check us out. I'm telling you to play C major 7. If you play E minor 7, again, we're going to get the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th of C major. So you can visualize this. Look, here's my E minor 7. Right, there's my normal E minor 7 voicing. Put a C in the base of that. It's kind of like a weird chord to finger if you want to absolutely finger it like this, but this is the sound that this will give, right? Beautiful. Right, so already, wow, we're starting to kind of break into a little bit of reharmonization just by looking at the fundamental chord that we have here. So the cool thing here is like, yeah, okay, cool, dude. Yeah, we have E minor 7 now, and I'm playing that over a C chord, but we also have all of our E minor 7 inversions, right? That 7th chord sheet where we have 4 different inversions across all 3 string sets. That's where we're going to start using those now. I can go, beautiful sound. Here's the E minor 7 with the 5th in the bass. That would be the top 4 strings. We got what, 9, 9, 8, 10. With a C in the bass. Beautiful C major 9 sound. Holy shit. Maybe I go down to E minor 7, and that will give me this sound. Right? And the beautiful thing about the reharm, I'm only playing the root note so you can hear it for reference, but we don't need to worry about the root note anymore. Someone else is playing it. The bass player's playing it. The piano player's playing it. We don't care about the roots anymore. We're not tied to them. We're not married to them. Roots don't matter. So, and then let's just make another category here that says 7th chords. So we said we have C major 7 because that's the chord we're working with. We also found an E minor 7 here. Now, any questions on any of this so far? Feeling okay? Okay. Also, I just saw something in the chat. This is all being recorded, so this will all be available for playback. Like as soon as we're done, I'm going to upload it. So if you ever need to come back to any of this, it's good to be here. So moving on. We said again, here's our fundamental chord. Let me see if I have a different color pen that I can draw. I do. Okay, one second. I'm just going to rewrite those chord tones in red so that we can see like our kind of fundamental structure here a little more visually. So we have C, my handwriting is that of a 5-year-old, and I apologize. C, E, G, B. Okay, back in action. So again, red notes are just showing us our C major 7, so we can kind of see what we're building off of here. So when I said, great, here's our just basic 7th chord we have, and to add on to it, we just went up a 3rd to add that 9th onto it, right? So check this out. If we can add a 3rd on top, what happens if we also added a 3rd below, right? Because again, I said we don't care about the root anymore. It's not that important. It's trivial now. So I say, okay, a 3rd below C is actually going to be the note A. And a lot of you might be able to correlate this to finding like a relative minor, right? If someone says, cool, we're in the key of C, and I want you to find the relative minor, we know we go down 3 frets from 1, 2, 3 to find a relative minor. So you can always think of adding a 3rd below as the same movement in your head as just going down to your relative minor. And it happens to be that A minor is actually the relative minor of C major, but that won't always be the case when we're working with harmony. So check this out. Holy shit, we've added another note, which means we're going to have another triad and another seventh chord. So again, look, now I have A, C, E. What triad does that spell? It spells an A minor triad. So I'm going to add this to the pile here, A minor. It also gives us A, C, E, G, which is A minor 7. Look at that. So now we also have an A minor 7. So now we have, and this is really like the movement that I'll do for any chord because we're reharmonizing it and we're not getting too far away from the original harmony. Meaning we're not going off on a tangent to get the crunchiest, most crazy sound, which we're also going to cover how to do. But this is really kind of like the building blocks of it. So now we've looked at, okay, we have our basic chord. We went a third up, a third below, analyzed everything, right? Now, if I play an A minor triad, I'm going to get A is what of C? If I didn't know, I'd have to go, okay, C, D, E, F, G, A. Okay, it's the sixth. Great sound. I love the sound of a sixth chord. So this is going to give me the sixth, my root, and my third. So you might be like, well, it says C major 7. It doesn't say C major 6. Why are we playing a sixth? Again, it's our fucking problem. We can do what we want, right? And the nice thing about this too is, yes, we're adding a sixth, but this chord, A minor, also has the root and the third of that seventh chord in it. And the root and the third is like the most stabilizing force in any chord. The third tells us if it's major or minor. Probably the most important note in any chord is the third, and the root is the root. It's like the person's name, right? So very, very stable considering that we're adding that sixth either way. And then again, if we add A minor 7, we're just adding that G. So we're playing the sixth, root, third, and fifth. Beautiful sounds. Same exact idea here. If I play any of my A minor chords, here's an A minor. I could even play down here. If I put that C in the bass, it's just going to give me the sound of an A6, right? And I can use, again, any of my A minor inversions. Beautiful, beautiful sounds. Now that we've gotten here, right, we have all these different options to work with. The magic happens when we start combining all of these chordal options. So cool, I'm playing on C major 7, I'm jamming, whatever, and now I'm gonna go, cool, I'm just gonna mix between, just willy-nilly between C major 7, E minor 7, and A minor 7. I'm just gonna rock between those chords and some of their inversions and see what sounds I come up with, right? So maybe I'll do A minor 7 to C major 7 to E minor 7 to A minor 7 to E minor 7 to C major 7 to A minor, maybe A minor again, E minor, right? So all of these different sounds. Now I kind of have the whole run of the fretboard, right? And on top of that, I also have all my triad options here. We had C, E minor, G, and A minor. And we know how many freaking triads we have, right? So it starts to become a little bit limitless in terms of like the options that we have. Maybe we can only pick a couple of these because the song is only so long and we can only play so many different chords. But the fun thing about this is, especially from like a rhythm player's perspective, a lot of the time we're just jamming on like one or two chords and we have to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And we're kind of just sitting there like, oh, I gotta go home and do the laundry. I forgot to do the dishes, right? It's like we can kind of trail off on our own thought, but now it's like, holy crap, I have all these different options. Like I could probably support a soloist on this song for an hour straight and always have a new chord voicing to play on top of it. And the beautiful thing with this is that all the stuff we're doing for our rhythm playing, we can also use for our soloing. And this is how I solo 99% of the time. I see C major 7 on the lead sheet, but I'm really going to be playing my arpeggios for C major 7, E minor 7, and A minor 7. And this is why this is so sick. Normally, if I said, cool, solo over a C major 7 chord, most guitar players will be like, okay, well, I have my C major scale, or I could go down to my relative minor, maybe play A minor pentatonic, right? So it's like, there's my two options, but that's the only parts of the neck that we can kind of use because that's where we know it, right? But if I play, oh, I'm just going to play my arpeggios, E minor, A minor, and C major. Check this out. I could start the low E string for E minor, right? I also have A minor. I have C. I have A again, E minor 7, C major 7, E minor 7, A minor 7, C major, A minor, E minor, and then same thing, C. Right, so I've literally covered the lowest to the highest note in the register of the guitar that I can play. So now when I go to solo over C major 7, if I'm just going to work between these 2 or 3 arpeggios, it's a lot easier on my brain because arpeggios are 4 notes, right? There's not a whole lot going on. And I can just mix between those and I can get these big cascading lines and I can utilize like the entire neck, right? Right, so you can get so much mileage out of these. It's kind of like cheating in a way, but a good way of cheating. Now, if you, oh, did someone just have a question? Maybe not. Okay. If you can open this one sheet that says, actually, I'll have you open 2 sheets right now. I'll have you open the ones that says Reharm extensions. And the chord sub explain. We're going to look at chord sub explain first. Everyone have those? Thumbs up if we have those. Okay, great. So the chord tone or the chord sub explain, that is going to be kind of what I just did right here on this whiteboard. Let's just look at the top half of this sheet. Don't worry about the bottom half yet. So I said again, at the very top, we have C major 7, and below that I have the 4 chord tones of C major 7. Here, let me just share it. I'll just share this actually so we can all see it. Share screen, chords up, okay. So again, here we have our chord tones. You can see my mouse hovering over this, right, where I'm kind of pointing. Yeah, okay, great. So we have C, E, G, B, and this just says here basic chord tones. Now I'm just analyzing, okay, here's again my 4 chord tones, C, E, G, B. What triads am I getting out of these? I'm getting my C triad and my E minor triad, right? Now I said with tensions, you'll see again, we added this A and this D on top. We just said, here's my C major 7, C, E, G, B, and I'm gonna add those 2 notes, one on top, one on the bottom, each a third higher or lower. This gives us even more triads. We'll see E minor, A minor, C, and G, just putting all those there on that triad sheet. And then I'm doing that same thing with the same structure, but now I'm looking for 7th chord. So I have, okay, A minor 7, A, C, E, G. I have C major 7, C, E, G, B, and then E minor 7, E, G, B, D, which gives us our 7th chord options here. And then just a little note there, we can use all the inversions of all of these chords here for comping as well as the arpeggios. So a whole lot of mileage on this. Now, the next sheet we're looking at is the Reharm extensions sheet. Do we still see those? Everyone have that sheet? So what I want to do with this is, here, I'll share this again so we can kind of start going over this one. So what we have here looks like a whole lot, but let's just take this step by step. Let's just look at the box that says C major 7 first, okay? Now, what this is it's saying, okay, C major 7 is the chord that we're going to solo over right now. So cool. I'm working with the C major 7 chord. It's saying if I play the chord on the left, it is going to give me the sound of the chord on the right. So for example, if I play A minor 7 in place of C major 7, it's going to make it sound like a C6 chord, right? And we looked at that. You can still see me over here, right? In your screen. So we looked at that here, right? I said, okay, this sheet is telling me if I play A minor 7, it's going to make my C chord sound like a C6. What are we talking about here? Well, again, I said, okay, A, C, E, G. Those are my A minor 7 chord voicings, right? So I'm looking at that, A, C, E, G. And now I'm going to analyze these chord tones against a C chord. So I know, okay, C is my root, E is my third, G is my fifth, and then A is my sixth. So root, third, fifth, and sixth just makes a 6 sound. So this would equal a C, whoops, just wrote a G, a C6 sound, right? Same thing, E minor 7 is the next chord on the sheet. It says if you play an E minor 7, it's going to sound like a C major 9. All right, well, let's write out again. E minor 7 is E, G, B, and D. Those are my chord tones. Now I'm going to analyze these over a C chord. I know E is my third, G is my fifth, B is my major 7th, and D is my 9th. Whoops. So again, this is going to give me a major 9 sound. Does that make sense how we're arriving at these? I can't really see any of you because I'm sharing my screen. Does that making sense? Okay, beautiful. So check us out again. Why is this screen share being so rude to me? Okay, there we go. So let me just pull this up again. Sorry about that. I'm just going to share my whole screen. Easy. Okay. So same thing here. Again, we have E minor 7. Those first two, A minor 7 and E minor 7, that's what we kind of worked out on the whiteboard here together, right? Now you'll see there's still so many other options. We have E minor 7 sharp 5, A7 sus, D7 sus, B minor 7 sharp 5, E7 sus, and F sharp minor 7 sharp 5. Whole lot of different sounds. Now, if you're like, WTF is going on with all these other sounds, if we look at the chord tone explain sheet, the chord sub explain sheet, I have all of those options written out right here at the bottom. So this whole box right here is going to give me, again, what we just did on the whiteboard, but it's just on this paper. So for example, E minor 7 sharp 5, I have the chord tones E, G, B sharp, which is really just C, and D, and those numbers underneath are representing what the intervals are in relationship to our parent chord, which is our C major 7. So we have the third, fifth, root, and 9th. It's going to make it sound like a C add 9. Same thing, B minor 7 sharp 5. B, D, G, and A are our chord tones. That gives us my 7th, 9th, 5th, and 6th. So it's going to sound like a C 6 9. Is that all making sense? Kind of how to what the analyzation is of all these chords. Now, this is like the deep dive of all of this stuff and how to figure it out and all the harmonic considerations and what all these different sounds are going to give us. But what I want to do is give you a shortcut in how to figure all these out. Oh, I see a hand. Joe.
Hey, yeah. So just a quick question with the CEGBD, would that chord without the sharp B be called a C major 9 or a C major 7 add 9?
Yeah, so it would just be called a C major 9. And that's a great question. That used to confuse the crap out of me because if you ever see add 9, it just means the triad and we're going to add the 9th in. Right. If you ever see major 9 or something like that, it's just saying we're also going to include the major 7th in the mix.
Okay.
That's basically all that means. Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So we've done all the kind of like deep analyzation of everything. But what I want to do is give you a way to use this stuff like on the fly, because there's obviously like, I'm not carrying around a whiteboard with me on every gig. And in the middle of the song, I'm not like, okay, so I got C, E, G, where's my, no one's doing that. So it's good to understand this stuff and it's important to understand it because then we can start really pushing the gas. But how I use this stuff in real life is I try to make it as easy as possible. So what I will do for myself is I'll go through and experiment with all of these sounds. So I might just loop a C major 7 chord or just find one on YouTube, C major 7 loop. And I'll play all these different, I'll play A minor 7, E minor 7, all the sus chords. I'll play all these options on top of it and find my favorite ones, okay? My personal favorites are the first two that we did, A minor 7 and E minor 7. I love those sounds over a major 7 chord. So to make it an instant thing that I can access, an instant sound, I want to make a couple rules around this. So I say, okay, cool. So when I play C major 7, I really like the way the E minor 7 sounds over it, right? So now I'm going to create a rule that works for every single major 7 chord. And it's going to be like this. Okay, if I have a major 7 chord, I know I can play a minor 7 substitution off of the third, because that's what E is from C, 1, 2, 3, right? There's my interval of a third. Or I can just think in my head, I'm going to count up 3 notes from whatever major 7 chord I'm on. So C, I can play a minor 7 chord off the third, or I can go down to the 6th or the relative minor from my major chord. Here's my root, go down, and I can play an A minor 7. So if I have that in my head as a rule, I'll say, okay, cool. Major 7 chords, go to substitutions. I'm going to go up to the third, play a minor 7 chord, or I'm going to go down a third or down to the 6th and play a minor 7 chord. Boom, instant. And you can make this a visual thing too. For me, when I see C major 7, I can see the third right there. So I automatically can see this chord. And this is how I would use this on the fly, right? Now, totally different song, totally different key. I'm playing A flat major 7 now. Right, I want to access these chord substitutions. I go, great, minor 7 chord off of the third. There's my third. Happens to be C minor 7. Great, there's my first one I can play. Or I go down to the 6th, or just down a third. It gives me F minor. So right away, right? I didn't have to think. I didn't have to use the whiteboard. I just went, great. Major 7 chord. There's my first one. There's my second one. Again, I have all my different chord inversions to work with too. Question. We got a question.
Me. Sorry. Is the inverse of that true as well? Like, if you had one of those other chords, can you sub it with? Does it work backwards?
That's yes and no. It depends on the function of the chord. Like, for example, you could get into a little bit of trouble with dominant chords in this scenario. Also, like, for example, like if I said, okay, I have E minor. Here, let me just write this out real quick. If I have, to a certain extent, yes, but I wouldn't create rules around that because that will start getting really confusing in your head. Like if I said, cool, I have A minor 7, A, C, E, G, right? I could say, okay, well, I'm going to go up a third to C, right? Which will give me C, E, G, B. That'll give me my 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th for an A minor 9. So I could say, if I have a minor chord, I could go up a third, play a major 7 chord. But in this scenario, I would just treat that as a totally different set of rules, right? I would say, great, when I have a minor chord, I like the sound of these two inversion or these two substitutions, and that happens to be one happens to be off of a third. So I would try to keep them kind of separate in your head, just from like a perspective of each chord type should have its like own little set of kind of go-to like formulas, if that makes sense.
Yep, makes total sense. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mike, I think Mike is the next hand.
My bad. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yo, thank you. I want to say I love these resources. I like the way you explain stuff. I like your cat. He's been
thanks.
distracting me a little bit.
Oh, she's just been lurking back there.
Yeah. But so when you're talking about like over C major 7, you're playing A minor 7 or E minor 7, like the 3 or the 6. You talking about like you can reharmonize using those chords, or like if they're playing a vamp, I could like play an A, like an E minor 7 arpeggio, and that's going to work.
100%. Yeah. And
okay.
I think of it as both of the same, like,
right.
And the nice thing with those two options is they're like what I consider like safe options. Like
right.
Pretty much anytime you have a major 7 chord, you can throw the 9th on, it's going to be fine. Same thing with the 6, like, so that A minor or E minor, incredibly safe. If you look at that Reharm extension sheet where you see, F sharp minor 7 sharp 5 gives us are 9, sharp 11, and 13. That's very far away from the original harmony. So it won't always work in like every scenario, right? But same thing, yeah, like we were saying, if you have a C major 7, you want to use that E minor 7, you play any E minor 7 inversion, whether it be a triad or a seventh chord, or you're soloing, you play E minor 7 arpeggio the whole time, it's going to sound amazing.
Right.
Because really all you're doing with E minor 7 is just adding the ninth to the
Right.
major chord, right? And it's a much more prescriptive way to nail that sound, because a lot of people will argue with me and they'll go, oh, well, if I want to emphasize the ninth, I'll just play my major scale and emphasize this note. But then they go to solo and it sounds like, and it's like, now you're just like screaming the ninth. It's like unpleasant, you know what I mean? As opposed to mixing it into something that sounds more natural. Right, and we're still getting that whole sound. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure, 100%. And the only thing to be careful with there is like if there's a chord change, obviously, then you're switching where you're going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Heard. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful. And again, no, like never be afraid of not playing the root. Like I know we're always like we see C major 7, we have to play the C in the bass. We don't. Just like rid that from our brains. So for a homework assignment, I have this. This is also in the module there. I'm having you just kind of loop this chord progression, and it's going to be C major 7, A minor 7, F major 7, and G7. So all I want you to do, basically, right, really just kind of straightforward chord progression. Just loop it somehow, even if it's like, sometimes when I'm practicing, I'll just record myself on my phone on a voice memo or like in GarageBand or something, just really, really simple, just to loop C major, A minor, F major 7, G7. And what I want you to do is I want you to find 1 or 2 chord substitutions for every single chord. And that could be as simple as, you know, we didn't really get to like minor 7 or dominant 7 in this week, but again, this is all kind of just, I want to give you guys the tools to start working with this stuff. So even if it's just playing through that chord progression and you just pick 1 chord to reharmonize, maybe you just say, okay, I'm going to work on that C major 7. So I'll play through this chord progression 3 times. The first time I'll play C major 7, and then the second time I play the chord progression, I'm going to play E minor 7 to reharmonize that C major 7 chord, right? Or then the next time I play A minor 7 to reharmonize that C major 7 chord. And as a challenge, if you want to move on to minor 7 and dominant 7, it's going to be the same exact deal here. We already kind of came up with our rule for major 7, right? I said, I like the sound of that minor, E minor 7, A minor 7, which is a third up and a third below. So I could already apply those chord substitution knowledge to F major 7 as well, right? So I have C major 7, A minor 7, F major 7. Same exact thing. I say, okay, F, the third of that, third of F is A minor. And if I go down a third, I have D minor. So I already have 2 substitutions ready to go just from that one rule, right? Now, if you want to find other things for, you want to find like other creative reharms for minor 7, right? Like this A minor 7. What I would have you do is I would have you do the same exact thing we just did on the C major 7, but I would say, let's look at minor 7 now. And I say, great, this is like exactly how I would do this as my own process. I'd say, okay, I'm going to just audition the sounds of some of these. C minor 7. So I might loop a C minor 7, just, you know, just, and then I'll see what all these different chords sound like. Maybe I'll try E flat major 7 over that. And wow, okay, I really love that sound. So I go, great, I'm going to use this as a relationship. And then maybe I'll do, as well, I'll do, let's say, G minor 7 sharp 5. And if anyone's curious of that voicing, it's just our normal minor 7 chord. And we're going to swap our ring finger with our pinky 1 fret higher. Right? Now, I've found 2 voicings that I like, okay? I have to make a rule for this now. I said, okay, I like E flat major 7 and I like G minor 7 sharp 5. So how do I relate this back to C as a rule? I say, okay, my original chord is C. For E flat major, I go up a third. Very similar, right? I'll go up a minor third, right? It's kind of similar to what we just did with C. And I can play a major 7 chord, or C to G, G minor 7 sharp 5, is a fifth. So I could just count up, okay, 5 up from my root chord, C, D, E, F, G is G. Beautiful. Now I take it back to our chord progression, right? And right here we have our, here's our chord progression for homework, right? C, A minor, F, and G. And I say, okay, cool. With my new rules over that A minor 7, I said I could go up a third, I liked it, or I could go to the fifth and play a minor 7 sharp 5. So I'd say, okay, great, A minor 7. Let's see what happens if I go up to the fifth and play that minor 7 sharp 5 voicing. Boom, now I have a whole new sound that I've just figured out that fast by using this sheet, right? This is a really, really awesome sheet because it has basically all of our different chord types here and just dozens of options. So again, what I do, and this can take you like a couple weeks, and you'll change over time what you like and what you don't like. So go through, maybe just start with major 7 this week, like audition some of these sounds, see what you like, and then come up with your own formulas for it. And that whole formula idea is gonna like make it so everything just is instant for you, right? Because again, we don't have time to always like whip out the whiteboard and write everything out, but I'll do that when I have the time to be like, oh, this is why I like this sound. Like, interesting, I like the sound of the 9th. I keep gravitating towards that sound. And it's cool to kind of know why we like certain sounds and how to access them quicker. So for the homework assignment, again, our sweet old chord progression here, you can just loop it. And if you want to be extra thorough, if you just want to loop the root notes of every chord, that will sometimes help you really hear what your reharms are doing on top of the harmony. So I might just play C, A, F, G, and then on top of that, I'll play my first original chord, C, A, F, G, and then I'll go back and I'll play my random, I'll play my different chords I want. So I have, maybe I'll do here, and then I'll do here, and then I'll do here, and then I'll do, and then I'll go back, right? So, and you can do this as many times as you want, just looping that chord progression and trying out different reharmonizations on top. Does that all make sense? I know this is like a lot of material, but again, it's an intensive. I want you to get every dime out of your $50. Again, a lot of this stuff, especially for the Reharm homework assignment this week, if you're totally unfamiliar with your 7th chord inversions and stuff, don't worry about putting those into like the homework assignment for now. Just know that those are also always available to you. And just start working on those. Same thing with your triads, same thing with your arpeggios. Those 3 things are like, there's no way to make it fun and exciting. Like, it's boring as shit, but it's gonna unlock a whole lot of great sounds for you, and it's super, super valuable. So just, put the time in, shed it, and then you'll never have to do it again. You'll just have to weed the garden every once in a while, every day, just for 5 minutes, right? So sorry, I don't know if you heard my cat just yawn. She's over it. So yes, we have office hours on Thursday. And yeah, that's basically to be like, if anyone has any questions about anything we talked about this week, we can just iron those out. You'll definitely come up with questions from a lot of this stuff. Please write them down as soon as they appear in your head, because the amount of times like I'll have a question for my teacher, and then like, while I'm practicing, I'll be like, shit, what about this? And then I won't write it down, finish practicing. I'm like, I have no idea what my question was anymore. So write them down. And yeah, I'll see everyone on Thursday. If anyone has any quick questions now, just feel free to pop in. Otherwise, beautiful. Yeah, we'll see you all on Thursday and next Sunday, and Thursday after.
Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everyone have a
Thanks.
good week.
Thank you.
All right, later.